Thank you very much, Chair. So I'm delighted to be here today as the Chair of the Development Assistance Committee, or DAC, which represents 30 of the world's most generous donors. And amongst other things, we're responsible for the governance of that fantastically precious resource, official development assistance, which was over $160 billion last year. And many of you have mentioned the importance of concessional finance. An ODA, of course, is by definition either granted or lent on very, very favorable terms. We were asked to talk about concrete strategies. Well, I'm delighted that we agreed a few days ago a landmark declaration in the Development Assistance Committee, which sets out a new approach and vision about how we align development cooperation with the goals of the Paris Agreement. And I think by extension, we need to say here today that it's also to align with the delivery of Glasgow. It's a package deal, and like all package deals, it was a hard-fought compromise. But central to it, and I think with unanimity in the committee, was the recognition that adaptation has long been neglected in development cooperation and in all climate discussions, and that this has got to stop, right here, right now. Sadly, it's too late to imagine that we will reduce poverty or tackle inequality or achieve any of the Sustainable Development Goals without more and more effective finance for adaptation in poor countries. How do we help to rebuild confidence in those partner countries? The first thing is to listen, as we did when we were developing our declaration. I think even more important is to hear the message from developing countries about the urgency of adaptation. For many of the poorest people in the world, the climate crisis is part of daily life. The least developed countries are already facing drought, food insecurity, and increasing conflict over scarce resources. Small island developing states are literally drowning. And these are people who, remember, often don't even have access to electricity. These are women who are having to gather firewood to prepare the family meal. And I don't know if you've ever tried to make a cup of tea or boil an egg on a solar panel. I trust me, it does not work well. So we need to develop technologies that will specifically help poor countries adapt. Think of the power of science that we harnessed to develop the COVID vaccination. When are we going to start harnessing that power to innovate and to help developing countries accelerate their own just transitions to net zero? That's what the DAC has committed to doing. And we're going to use ODA to help do that, to build capacity in partner countries and to support their priorities. Finally, let me just say a word about the biggest hurdles and how to overcome them. The first is, can we please stop making it so hard for least developed countries and SIDS to access those green finance resources that are already available? We need to work across the multilateral system. Reform is urgently needed, and we need the people in this room to get together as shareholders, as stakeholders, and to work out how to do that fast. Second, we need to be more transparent as donors about where the climate finance is going and what for. Our DAC declaration commits to being more transparent in climate finance by the end of 2022, which, trust me, for a multilateral organization, that is at breakneck speed. We need to use official development assistance to help mobilize more private finance, to blend it in creative ways and generate that alchemy that you can get when you use public and private resources together. And last, but by no means least, we must not ignore the development effectiveness principles to make sure that adaptation and transitions to net zero really do work. They need to be country-driven. They need to be results-focused. They need to be based on sound partnerships and accountable and transparent. They need to be inclusive, and they need to make sure that women and girls are at the heart of decision-making and implementation. These are not nice-to-haves. We learnt the hard way that development doesn't work unless it's based on these principles. And adaptation and mitigation will not work either unless they're based on these principles. We don't have time to reinvent the wheel. What we need to do is to build on what we know works and to focus not on declarations now, but on delivering the outcomes that they promise. Thank you.